Hey guys, I'm here today with a few pedals, and I'm going to call this my Faux Analog Delay shootout, I guess, or my analog-ish shootout video. And I have one analog delay here, and the rest are emulating analog delays. I mean, I guess the Eventide Rose isn't really doing that, but it can do it pretty well. So I guess we'll go over what I have here. We have the MXR Carbon Copy Deluxe. This is fairly older pedal. I don't remember when it came out. I think it was 2016, 2015. Yeah, I feel like it's turned into a classic. I mean, the original Carbon Copy is already a classic in my opinion. And yeah, and then we have the Strymon Brigadier here, which is definitely a classic by this point. It's quite a bit on the older side. The Eventide Rose, not a classic yet, but I feel like it's going to be. The Universal Audio UAFX Starlight here. This does a very good emulation of the Memory Man. I'm going to do another video on this. I did a video where I gave it kind of a scathing review, but I recently got a digital delay I just could not stand, and this has been... It basically raised itself up in terms of what I think of it. So I've made that video private, and I will do a different video on the Starlight here. So yeah, and then we have the DL4 MK2, which I love. It's a great pedal. It does a lot of different things, and they're all set into analog mode. If they have an analog mode, this one only has an analog emulation in it. And then the Eventide Rose is a little weird. It's not DSP based like the others here. Well, this is Bucket Brigade based, but this is based on an FPGA, and it reads in the audio through a codec just like you would on most digital pedals, but it sends it directly to RAM without using a DSP per se. It does it in discrete logic that's implemented in an FPGA, so that's unique. And the filter, as well as I believe the filter for sure is analog, but the modulation section, I believe, is analog as well. It's derived in the analog domain, and the entire feedback path is analog on this. So this sounds very close to a real analog delay. And the Carbon Copy Deluxe has real Bucket Brigade chips in it, obviously. It has, I don't remember how many. It's, I think they're 2048, like the size of how many buckets it has instead of the 4,000 wide. So this does like a second of delay time, but it's very clean and it has a lot of filtering. So it's quite unique for a analog pedal. So yeah, the original Carbon Copy has 2 Bucket Brigade chips. This has quite a few more as far as I remember when I saw the insides of it. So yeah, that said, these are all analog-ish pedals, and we'll go over what they sound like in the analog modes. So I have the Liven XFM here, and I have a harp patch. We're going to use that as the first patch, and then I'm going to do some pads. I have a 5th pad on here that sounds absolutely wonderful, or actually it's a preset. The harp is a preset too because FM synthesis, you know. So what it's going to sound like for the first part. All right. And I have some silence in the sequence, and I'll play a little bit later where we just hear the different pedals. But yeah, I'll stop talking here in a second, then we'll just hear the pedals. And in a second part to this video, I'm going to have, I believe, this pedal, and possibly this pedal just by themselves, and we're going to listen to it in stereo. This is just going to be mono now. I don't want anything to have a leg up on each other because these sound absolutely wonderful in stereo. But yeah, now it's just one signal path going through. They're all set to true bypass. So these all support true bypass. Well, this one is a mechanical bypass, but it's true bypass. So they shouldn't be affecting each other. So that said, let's get into it. And I should mention that I got them to sound as close as possible. None of them are going to sound identical, but I got them as close as possible, and I tried to tap in the same time. All right, I'm going to stop talking now. All right, I hope that gave you kind of a feel for what they sound like. I'm going to now start talking a little bit about them and what I think about them all. So obviously the Carbon Copy Deluxe should sound the most analog out of them because it is. Yeah, it's a really nice delay, but I feel that it's not super versatile in the context of a synth, especially at long delay times. The filtering gets extremely aggressive in it. So any high frequencies are really filtered out of the delay path when you are up at higher delay times. We're close to, we're almost close to a second, I would think. But here's the problem. Like, let's go into a high frequency. See how quickly that pans out? Yeah, and so since obviously a synth is a full range instrument, yeah. And it does even worse with pads. Anything with a lot of, where it just puts a lot into the Bucket Brigade chips, it just doesn't do well. I mean, we'll hear that in a second, but yeah, so all the other delays do a fantastic job with high frequencies. We get quite a few repeats out of the Brigadier here. We get quite a few repeats out of Starlight. That one sounds really good. Obviously, the Brigadier sounds really good too. It's so hard for me to choose one. Yeah, the Rose, I just love the Rose. You saw my previous video on this and my original video. I'm going to redo a video on this with my multiple years of ownership of a Rose. But yeah, that one obviously is the most cleanest out of all of them, even with having the multiplier turned up and the filter down. So this is going to be the grittiest this can do. It can do a little grittier, but sounds wonderful, and the modulation is just, it's really great. And it's very versatile, obviously, because this can do like 50 seconds of delay time. So as time goes, the Brigadier is the second longest. This can do 5 seconds. The Starlight does 1 second, and I think the DL4 does like 2.5 seconds, something like that. I don't know about in the analog mode, but yeah. And yeah. This one has lovely modulation. I'm using this in the, it's the Adriatic mode, which is I don't know how to put it. It's like a reimagining of what the DM2 is supposed to sound like, the Boss DM2. This is in the Deluxe Memory Man mode. I'm not a fan of the Deluxe Memory Man mode in the DL4. It's a little too basic for me. It sounds more like a real one, but it doesn't have any extended delay times. So I keep this in the Adriatic mode, and it can do long repeats. Modulation sounds fantastic. All these have modulation turned on, close enough to each other. And yeah, so as modulation goes, I think my favorite is, it's between the Starlight. Let me go down. You know what? It's a wash. All of these do really good modulation, even the MXR. It's just different styles of it. This has but yeah, this has the most versatile because it has different shapes, especially since it has a random shape, which is really cool for tape style delays. The Starlight, it has a nice modulation as well. This thing sounds fantastic in stereo. These two sound really good in stereo. We'll listen to that a little later. But yeah, so as analog emulation goes, I think the Starlight nails it the best because here, we'll listen. What you're trying to listen for is towards the end of the repeats when they get very quiet, is how it breaks up. It should be a little staticky, like you're A bucket brigade device works in the context of just a bunch of capacitors on a chip. And what you're doing is, just like the name says, you're moving along the charge. But when the charge gets towards the end of it, especially at slower clock speeds, so higher delay times, it'll start disappearing. But it disappears in such a wonderful way. That's why I think a lot of people like analog delays. It's the reason I like the sound of analog delays. I don't like analog delays per se in the real analog context because they're not that versatile. We'll hear in a sec, but this does very well. This does very well too, and we can turn up the bucket loss. And this also has a filter that you can control with holding these two down and changing the bucket loss. I don't want to change it now because it sounds wonderful where it is, but I think that sounds lovely all the way up, so all the way down. No noise, no distortion, but all the way up. Even though I believe this is the oldest one out of all of these, this still holds up, especially with the filtering algorithms that they did for the bucket loss. Turn it to right around there again. And let's go to that pad, and this is where you can really tell a lot. This is a really cool pad. It's a 5th. Whoops. All right, and here's where we can hear where the carbon copy is really going to break down at higher delay times. We get almost no repeats and weird artifacting because it's such a powerful sound with so much harmonic richness to it. It just feels like it's filtered out. Like I said, this has very aggressive filtering in place, especially at higher delay times, to get the clock noise out and to get a lot of the aliasing out. It has a pretty strong anti-aliasing filter, I guess you would call it. So if we go to something like the Brigadier, we get some nice strong repeats, but it still sounds absolutely gorgeous, and it still has all that analog character. Let's go to the most digital one in terms of, but also analog. It's the weirdest thing to say, but that's amazing. That has such beautiful character to it. I wish this was stereo. I wish they made an Eventide Rose that was stereo, but it would probably be twice the price. So, or like, it would be pretty expensive. All right. And then let's go to the Starlight. Those repeats just die out really well. And then to the DL4. Also gorgeous. Ooh, I just love how that goes. Let's listen to the Brigadier again with high bucket loss. So good. This one's going to be pretty amazing when we listen to it in stereo, but as the mono goes, I believe the Rose just is the most, it's amazing sounding. The Rose really excels when you throw another like a ping pong delay on the end of it, and then you kind of like get a stereo image, or you put something like the DC2W at the end of it to make it sound stereo. Damn, that just sounds amazing. Let's change it to the random wave shape and turn up the depth quite a bit. Wow, I love that. And out of all of them, this is the only one that can do reverse in its analog mode, or like when it's trying to be an analog delay. All right. So that's the first part of this video. Join me back here in a second, and I will have these three set up in stereo. All right, so now I'm back in stereo. So I hope you're listening to this in stereo setup, near field monitors, something nice, full range headphones, full range speakers. Please make this worthwhile for you to really hear the nuances between them. I think they all sound great, but you can make up your own mind about this. So we're using the same delay times we were using in the last video. I made sure not to touch anything. Everything was still plugged in while I was doing it, so none of the settings have changed. But now all we're doing is doing it in stereo. So yeah, and then we'll mess with some of the settings and go over what I feel about this. So I'm not going to use the harp at all. I'm just going to use this patch. So I think that we're all turned off here. Okay, and I think that just demonstrates how well these can be used for ambience. Let's start with the Brigadier. Absolutely gorgeous. Let's go to the DL4. Get in the Adriatic delay mode with some modulation. This is pretty much mono unless you have modulation on. These two give a stereo image, I believe, without modulation, but yeah. Just turn it off and find out. Yep, the modulation is what's stereo. Let's try and get that where it was. Gorgeous. And now let's go to the Starlight in the analog mode, the deluxe memory man. I almost want to say digital memory man. I've said that a few times. I might have said it in this video. So this has a trick up its sleeve, and we'll listen to that in a second. But let's turn off the modulation. B here, so we have vibrato and chorus. C is chorus. We're in the chorus mode. And we'll just choose B here, which is no modulation. Okay, so this also creates its stereo image with the modulation, at least until we see the trick it can do. Gorgeous. This is the only one, I believe, the Strymon that can do, it does a stereo image without modulation. I believe the Strymon timeline is the same way. There's a little bit of a stereo spread algorithm that's applied to everything. I think it's wonderful. Some people don't like it. I do. Let's go back up to about there. Okay, so let's go to the trick up the sleeve here. Let's turn off modulation. And what we can do is we can set a stereo style division where we have a stereo spread. These two have 2 subdivisions each, and it splits them out into I believe it might be ping pong. The manual makes mention to that, so there might be not a cross modulation, but cross feedback. But either way. But with modulation even. And of course, we get the pitch changes like a real Bucket Brigade device. We should. Yeah, so out of all these, if you need an analog mode, I feel the Starlight and the Brigadier do the best. The DL4 isn't very authentic, but it's also very gorgeous. It just, I don't think the filtering's as strong, and it doesn't give you a lot of noise. So, but this is the most versatile out of these pedals. This can do a lot more, so that's cool as well. I'm going to say my favorite for ambience is definitely the Brigadier. Turn off the bucket, or I'll put the bucket loss to around there, and I'm going to put the filter all the way down. Turn up the repeats a little bit. Long attack there. Oops. Let's go into the long mode where this can do about 5 seconds of delay time. We'll go around here. Hear the filtering there. We'll turn it to noon, which is null for the filtering. Gorgeous. All right. Yeah. I think for the ambience, the Brigadier is my favorite for sure. For authenticness, so I have a Pigtronics Echo, I forgot what it's called, the Echo something another. It's the deluxe Memory Man that was made by the same guy. It's the little pedal. And this sounds very close to that. This sounds better, obviously, but... The Constellator. I was trying to think of the name. So for authenticness, this sounds awesome. This has a lot of little, or I shouldn't say a lot, but it has some aliasing, which the real thing does. But the filtering is gorgeous on this too. The other trick it has is that this emulates the preamp. I'm going to turn the mix down, and I'm just going to slam the preamp. So color becomes the preamp. You can hear that gorgeous distortion. So the original Deluxe Memory Man had a preamp, and this emulates it. And yeah, so this has a lot of nice character to it. Oh man, I had all the other pedals turned on and plugged in. I should have played them together, but let's just turn these on, listen to them together. All right, we'll go back to, we'll leave it on the DL4 MK2. And on that note, I'm going to finish up this video. It's getting quite long. I think this is probably going to be my longest video in a while. I hope you made it to the end. I doubt that many people did, but if you did and you enjoyed it, give me a like and a subscription if you like this kind of stuff. Follow me here on YouTube. And yeah, I will keep making fun videos like this. I have another UAFX pedal coming pretty soon. I ended up getting the Galaxy because I just like tape delays. And I ended up ordering the Chase Bliss blooper. So that'll be coming soon too, and I'll be making video on those. But yeah, so I hope this helps somebody out. It was entertaining for me, at least. I just wanted to show the differences between faux digital delays mimicking analog delays, except for obviously the real analog delay that I used and the Rose, which is a hybrid. But yeah, they all do very, very convincing, at least in the spirit of things, analog delay. And in a mix, are you really going to tell? I don't think so. I just feel like DSP's gotten so good these days. Even back in the day when the Brigadier came out many years ago, I think this is from 2008 or 2010, I believe. They just sound so good. So yeah, don't get hung up on if a pedal is digital or analog. A lot of them can sound very good. Anyway, thanks for watching.